I'm going to kick off. So we're going to start on the right on midday. So my name is Vicky Gattata, and I am the General Manager for Strategy and Delivery for the Powering Skills organisation, and I'm going to be your moderator for today. Just a quick note, we are recording this session, so people who could not attend or you've got people interested in your organisation, they can refer to it at a later date. It will be available on our website. But first, the Powering Skills organisation acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to the elders past and present and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people today. I'm just going to stop sharing for a second. So all of you are on mute at the moment, and if you have any questions during the session, could you please place them in the chat, and as the moderator, I will pull out some questions as we go, like more towards the end. Another note, we're recording this session just for those new people, and we only have half an hour, and we're going to attempt to get in as many questions as we can. However, if we don't get to yours, we'll take notice of these questions. We'll be using them to look at common themes from you guys. People on this chat are very, very important to us. And at the end of the content, we're also going to be asking you a few questions through Polly, and so we're happy for you to contribute to these, and we're going to be using the information for our research. But first, let me introduce you to Anthea Middleton, who is on our screen. She is the Powering Skills Organisation CEO. Anthea comes to the Powering Skills Organisation, or how we refer to it as the PSO, with deep experience in workforce capability in both the energy and the tech industries. Her recent achievements include contributing to workforce skilling research for Australia's electricity networks, electrode technology contractors, and the coal seam gas industry. One interesting thing about Anthea and her work experiences a few years ago, she spent a few years in Facebook. So if you ever get her here, it's great to hear from Anthea and her time at Facebook, because it's very interesting culture there. And Anthea is a passionate advocate for diversity and safety in this industry in particular. So over to you, Anthea.
Thank you, Vicky. That's a very lovely introduction. I appreciate it. And welcome to everyone on the call today. It's wonderful for me to see so many friendly faces that I haven't worked with for a little while, that I'm back in the classroom and enjoying it. So also great to see so many new people into our stakeholder group. So thank you very much for joining in today. So, Vicky, if I can ask you to pop the slide pack up, we'll get into the content, because really I'm focused on the conversation at the end. As Vicky said, please do put your questions in as we go, because I want to answer as many of those as possible. So, who are we? We are one of 10 Jobs and Skills Councils nationally, focused specifically on the energy sector and the broad subsectors that sit underneath that. We were officially established on the 1st of July this year, so still very new. We're building the rocket ship as we're launching it. And the hard work started early last year. The founding members of our organisation are Master Electricians Australia, who are hosting me today, so thank you very much. The NECA, the National Electrical Contracting Association, and the Electrical Trades Union, the ETU. So initially, there wasn't a separate Jobs and Skills Councils allocated for energy, but NECA, MEA and ETU came together and said, look, this doesn't make sense. So they put together a business case, which was very well received, and that is what started the journey that has led us here today. We currently have 5 board members, and I'd like to acknowledge some of those are on the call today, and as well as our proposed directors. So thank you again for your support and your continuing collaboration. So our current board is Greg Skyring is our independent chair. For those of you that know electrical, Greg's most recent role prior to his retirement, or semi-retirement as it has turned out, he was the Commissioner for Electrical Safety in Queensland. So Greg comes with a great deal of industry experience and deeply understands the regulation and legislation around electrical safety. Also on our board are Malcolm Richards, who is CEO of Master Electricians Australia, Kent Johns, who's Head of Government Relations for NECA, and Michael Wright is the National Secretary for the Electrical Trades Union, along with Dr. Anita Talberg from the Clean Energy Council. Now, we're working through to expand that. We do have 11 in total that are proposed, and we're hoping to have that finalised in the next month or so. So once that's been established, we'll be able to announce that formally. Look, just the one thing I'd add here is we are building the team. So we have a small team in place, very much focused on, I guess, the corporate side of the fence, corporate services. We're now looking to build our really deep industry expertise, and it's fantastic to have Vicky on board, who brings a wealth of skilling and leadership understanding across a range of sectors, but in the ESI, electrical supply industry space as well. So it's great to have Vicky on board, and we're currently building out her team. So Vicky, next slide, please. As I mentioned, we are one of 10 national jobs and skills councils looking at a range of industry sectors. And we also have a deep relationship with DEWA, the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations. They are the department that established the Jobs and Skills Councils, and we'll continue to work with them very closely to make sure that we are meeting the needs of workforce skilling and planning and industry stewardship, as well as training product development. And I'll talk about what our core pillars are and what we're here to do briefly soon. But we also have a relationship with Jobs and Skills Australia. So they are the newly formed separate entity. They're a statutory authority who are looking to really be the data stewards for all things workforce data and research in Australia. And I guess the other core component that makes this Jobs and Skills Council model different to what's happened in the past is there is already deep collaboration across the 10 Jobs and Skills Councils. It is part of how we were constructed, and it's very important to us that we are all successful. We had a great week in Canberra last week. All of the CEOs came together, but also the teams came together as well. So it was the first opportunity for us to really deeply engage and start to talk about potential collaboration opportunities across our industry sectors. So let's talk a bit more about, I can hear a noise on the line. I'm not sure if that's bothering everyone. Nope, it's gone away, great. So Vicky, next slide, please. So what is our core business? We have 4 key pillars that we're here to deliver on. And I'll do a deep dive into what those 4 are, but it's at a top level: workforce planning for industry, for the energy industry, industry stewardship, so working together across all of the interested stakeholders that represent the energy sector, training product development, as well as the implementation, promotion and monitoring. And I'm really pleased that's its own pillar, and I'll talk about what that aims to achieve in the next few slides. But at a high level, we're here to address skill shortage and understand workforce needs for the energy and renewable industries. We have a deep focus on the transition from fossil fuels to renewable energy, and it is important that the industry sectors that are listed on the right are an overview of the different sectoral components that exist in our portfolio. We want to acknowledge that renewables is beyond that and sort of sits across a lot of the other industry sectors, but we are starting to call it out so we can understand more broadly and more deeply what renewables mean for us here in Australia. Vicky, the next slide, please. Okay, so the first pillar is workforce planning. Those of you that know me know that this is a very deep passion area of mine. I've worked in workforce planning for the energy sector in Queensland for quite a number of years, and I deeply understand its values and the value that it can add to policy, to investment decisions, and how it can truly provide a data-based evidence to support, you know, decisions that we make on policy and investment. So we want to look at what the future workforce and skilling needs are, and we do recognise we have at the moment both a labour shortage and a skill shortage. So how do we make sure that we're looking to identify the areas where both of those exist, and what are we going to do about it? And that's a core component here. There is an expectation that the workforce plan has a very detailed activity plan that maps to it. So it's not a research paper. It is a living document with which we will deliver a range of key strategies and activities to address the gaps that we're identifying through the workforce planning. You'll see it is a key theme. The partnership with JSA and the other JSCs in this particular pillar are critical. We have shared workforces, as you know. An electrician, as an example, is one of our core occupations. However, electricians work across mining, construction, manufacturing, etc. So the partnership model there is really, really important. And everything we do needs to be evidence-based. We value the qualitative data the way that we value the quantitative data, and that is what being able to bring those two sets together is really where industry, the insights come from. So the next pillar is industry stewardship. We want to be a workforce and skills champion. We want to develop our deep expertise and make sure that we are representative across all of the industries that we represent, you know, from, you know, gas to HVAC to electrotech, supply, transmission, right back to the base generation. So there's a whole lot of work that we need to do to make sure that we are out there understanding the key and critical themes that impact these energy sectors, so that we can work with government and regulators, we can work with industry, employers and unions, we can work with existing workers and apprentices coming through the system, and of course work with the training sector. You know, TAFE and private RTOs are critical to our success. There's also a lot of new things that we need to understand. Hydrogen, obviously, small-scale hydrogen is really advancing in Australia, and there isn't yet as collective a voice around the workforce as there could be. So we're happy to step into that role and play that role. I'll go to the next slide because I do want to talk about the training product development. I know that there's a lot of the training sector on the line, and I just want to recognise the deluge of activity that you've had come your way in the last 12 months, and it's continuing to impact you now. And I want to make it really clear, we're not coming in to rewrite the entire system. We need to understand the current landscape. We need to understand where the gaps are, and that's our immediate issue. We also have a training product issues log that we've been keeping up to date, and we've started responding to, because which are very much about, I guess, some of the new units of competency and units of competency that are being superseded, as well as questions about the regulator, etc. And I would encourage you to, if you have any questions like that, please do put in your questions through our website. There's a information page on our website where you can directly let us know what the issues that you're finding. But I just wanted to make that reassurance, is we're not looking to come in and change everything all over again just because we're new. We want to take the good work that's been done, understand it, and then progress from there. And we're obviously driven by industry in terms of the training products that that are being identified as not fit for purpose or where there are gaps. We definitely in this space want to pilot some new approaches, and we are keen to make sure that we understand the whole system as it stands, and that includes the training sector capacity and capability. We know if there's a skill shortage, there's a skill shortage and a labour shortage within the training sector. So the final pillar is implementation, promotion and monitoring. And I think this is really important because it's normally sort of stuffed away in other areas. It's part of, it's a deliverable and it gets a little bit lost. There is, you know, it is critical to us that we are able to demonstrate that we are adding value, that what we are doing is fit for purpose, and that we are you know, that we are utilising the resources that we have to increase the overall capability and capacity of the energy sector. So this pillar, it will become more important next year, as we need to do some stuff before we can figure out how to implement, promote and monitor it. But certainly as time goes on, this will be our most important pillar, I think. So that's our 4 core pillars. That our actual training packages, just to talk to those briefly, we have the UEE Electrotechnology Training Package, UEG for gas, UEP, so electricity supply and generation, and UET transmission and the rail, part of the rail sector. So I would say that potentially there's a box missing and beyond. We really want to make sure that we are meeting the needs of now and the future. And so there could be brand new training packages that we feel would add value. But beyond the vet sector as well, there's also an issue of how do we relate to the university sector and to secondary schooling as a starting point. So this is where we're focused for right now, but next, sky's the limit. To talk, I'm just realised we're only a few slides left. So where are we at and where are we going? Today, 24th of August, thank you again for joining us. The 7th of September, we'll have our first online consultation forum, and that is by invitation. Those invitations will go out on Monday. And that is to start to test our initial workforce report. So it's really an environmental and desktop scan of the existing landscape of the energy workforce. And we'll use that to understand and establish our strategic industry advisory groups. So that report will help us understand those and establish those in the 4th quarter of this year. But also it will help us, and the technical advisory groups, it will then allow us to make sure that those groups are fit for purpose because we've got some initial information to go with. We know there was a lot of great work that happened in the old model, but we're looking to really test what works for us now. In mid-November, we will release the findings of that report as well as what our activity plan is to address the gaps. So there'll be some real actionable initiatives that we will look to commence in November, and we'll be really pleased to bring that to you. And then next year in April, really all of the components, both the engagement and the research that we're working on now, will directly contribute to a deep workforce plan for the energy sector. So we're hoping to have that out to industry in April. No doubt there will be consultation throughout our time between now and then to make sure that what we're producing is right. Okay, so that's the end of the content, but I do want to flag there's plenty of ways to be part of us and our journey. Please become a member. It's free to join. We have 3 classes, employer, employee and associate membership. Please visit our website. Happy to also, it's new, so happy for fresh eyes to provide feedback if there's any accessibility issues. It's very important that it is an accessible website. And again, we have our members webinar on September 7, and we will be using that membership list to invite participants to contribute to that initial workforce report that we'll be drafting. So that is the end of the content. Now, while Vicky, you are going to curate
Stay
some questions for me to answer,
Yeah, stay. But
I would like.
Sorry, go.
I was
Yep.
just going to Lisa Harmer, who is our Senior Manager for External Relations and Communications, has put together a poly, which is just 2 questions. And the questions are specifically about how you want us to work with you. So they'll be coming up on your screen right now, and we'll be able to show the results live so you can see that. And I'll fill it in. Now, one thing I do want to say, if you do get a Microsoft message, it's 2 clicks. It happened to me yesterday saying you need to install this. It might be different if you use an Apple, like a Mac, but certainly not a difficult, it's not a difficult thing to accept, and then it takes you straight to the questions.
Right.
So,
Whilst you're
I'll take some notes. Have a quick
and
drink.
whilst you're doing that, we're going to start fielding some of these questions. So keeping in mind we've got 10 minutes and a lot of questions, and the questions are great. I've been reading them as we've been going. So
I'd like some tough ones, please.
Well, let's ease you into it. So
Okay.
Michael Purton has asked, with the collaboration across the JSCs, will trading packages all look the same?
That's a really great question, and I doubt it. I think what we're really, the conversations are early, but what we have discussed so far is actually working. There's also the qualification reform that is happening, with being led by Minister Brendan O'Connor, who is our Federal Minister for Skills and Training. He has a ministerial council with all of the skills and training ministers represented across the states and territories, and they've established a steering committee from across industry. There's 7 people on that, including representation from unions, employer groups, the training sector, higher education. So what that is looking to do is actually understand, we've got thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of qualifications. You can, and when the example that we discussed was, communicate with stakeholders. There's literally hundreds of units of competency that sit to address this thing. So how can we as a collective put our minds to what is generic and what is not, to actually reduce the number of training packages but not lose context? It's early days, but certainly I can't see, I certainly can't see the 4 training packages that we represent being melded into others.
So on slide 5, only hydrogen was shown in the gas space. Where do natural gas and LPG sit?
They absolutely sit in our space. The reason we didn't highlight it, I guess, is we were looking at it's a high. This is so that grouping is a high level that assists us in the groupings for our first initial report, but we are looking at all types of gas as they come in, but probably our focus is going to be on the areas of greatest need, and so far that hasn't been raised other than a transition workforce. So it's a good point. Maybe we add it in to reduce the noise for future conversations.
Mm-hmm. So I love this question. So Mikola and Tony Palladino have both asked a very similar question. So about the RTO delivering UEE training package focusing on electronics, computer systems and data and voice. So there's some RTOs who are focused on that, but they do deliver in the UEE. So the focus seems to be on the energy sector. So how is packages like that supported by this JSC?
I'm going to see if I can find the question, or maybe you could reread the question for me, Vicky, because I think I missed I'll find your.
So it's at 12:10.
12:10. Great. I'll scroll back up. That might help me answer that a bit more specifically. And look, I might not have an answer for everything. I'll own that. We are still new and we're still figuring out what our position is on certain things. So we're an RTO delivering UEE training package focusing on electronics, computer systems and data and voice. Yep. Well, I think this is where I put the call out to this group. I know, having worked in this space, that the biggest voices often get the most attention. However, we're really committed to representing all of the subsectors. So an example of that is refrigeration has a very large workforce and very important, but it's not a main. In terms of the licensing outcome, it's different to an electrician. But if you look at a lot of the new energies, they require refrigeration as a core component in how they're managed. And so we want to make sure that we are there in front of that industry, supporting them in their training needs, just as much as we would be with the gas sector or with electrical. I think it's for us to understand too the nuances. So I think in those examples, it would be looking at how the results of those qualifications, how they relate to the energy sector, and what do we need to do to make sure that those qualifications are supported in an appropriate way.
Mm-hmm. So I'm going to jump to Peter Marshall, because Peter asked the question that we often get through our website. So I think it's good to address this. What mechanisms are in place now to support RTOs who are trying to seek clarification on training package requirements and unit specific wording?
Great. Please, as I said, go enter the information into our website. We have started collecting that, and look, we're raw, but we do have an issues register that we're working through. And in fact, yesterday we responded to our first of that nature, and it's regarding the unit of competency that directly relates to rescue from a live low voltage panel. So we understand that there are two prerequisites that have been added to the new unit of competency in order for you to do that training. So we've requested that from ASQA that they extend that teach out by 12 months so that we have time to understand the concerns of both both industry sectors that have raised this through the previous IRC model, so we can make an informed decision. But that info out is where we collate and collect that information, and it enables us then to respond.
Okay. There's a couple there. There's one there that I want to end with, but we're not going to add that one yet. So actually it's 12:27. Let's do this one. And I know there are so many good questions on there, and we will address each of them on our website. So don't worry too much if I haven't gotten to it. And some of you I haven't gotten to it because I know the answer is really, really long. So and some of it I know that we can give you an answer, but it may not be the answer to that question as yet. So,
but I think,
this
Nikki, because it's our first run, we'll turn this into an FAQ sheet. So yes. I will respond to every question. I think that's really important that happens.
Mm-hmm. So I will ask this question then. So what is the single most important outcome for the PSO? So someone asked that because they're curious on how we articulate the purpose succinctly and measure the progress. Glenn Powell has asked that.
Thank you, Glenn Powell. That's a big question. Honestly, if I can contribute to how we respond as a training sector and how that model is effective to ramp skilled teachers, and it enables a greater volume of students coming through the system, because we know at the moment, we can only train the amount of people that we have the teachers for. If I can contribute to improving that system, that will be a very deep success for me. But I think broadly, if we can continue to make changes as they're needed, whilst assisting workforces that are transitioning out of old technologies and fossil fuels into a new world of work in Renewables. I think that is also would be a really great outcome for the Powering Skills organisation.
Okay, so that brings us to 12:29. So I think that we're going to wrap it up there. We will address those questions later. However, if you haven't looked at the QR code and you've scanned and gone to our website, poweringskills.com.au, please do so. We anticipate that over time that we will add to this and you'll find more and more information on that. I do see that someone has misinterpreted the timeline, and it said that there's someone interpreted it that there's going to be 1 year before advisor groups. That's actually incorrect. So it's before the end of the year, so they're starting early next month. So that actually was 2023, not 2024. So that is a little bit of a probably just missing. Maybe it was our fancy timeline and not necessarily you, Jason. So definitely look at that, and we'll be inviting people to the beginning of September workshop. And please go in and register if you haven't already to become a member. Thank you very much for attending, everyone. We've had 167 people at this one, and we really appreciate you coming in and listening to the time, and reach out in our info on our website if you have any questions. So we'll leave it there, and thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.